Let's talk about Henry Ford. We're going to break down how a couple of massive, high-stakes gambles didn't just build a car company, they pretty much built the modern American middle class as we know it. Okay, let's get into it. It all starts with the paradox, really. How could one of the greatest innovations in manufacturing history, the assembly line, also create a human crisis so huge that the solution would end up changing society itself? So, to really get this, you got to picture the world back at the turn of the 20th century. Henry Ford had this vision, this dream, that honestly seemed kind of impossible to everyone else at the time. See, back then, cars were basically handcrafted toys for the super rich. You had these highly skilled workers who would build a single car piece by painstaking piece. It was an art form, for sure, but it was also incredibly slow and wildly expensive. Just let this number sink in for a second. It took more than 12 hours of pure labor to put together just one car. At that pace, Ford's dream of putting a car in every garage, well, it was just a fantasy. He knew he needed a totally radical change. And that radical change, his first huge gamble, was inspired by a pretty unlikely place, the meatpacking plants of Chicago, with their continuous flow. And he thought, hey, why can't we do that with cars? So in 1913, he did it. He rolled out this wild, groundbreaking system. Instead of the workers moving to the car now moved to the workers. Each person had just one simple task to do over and over again. Now, this meant a massive factory overhaul, a total reliance on interchangeable parts. It was a huge, unproven risk. There was zero guarantee it would actually work. But oh, did it pay off? The assembly time for a Model T just plummeted, from over 12 hours all the way down to just 93 minutes. That wasn't just an improvement, it was a revolution. And the result of that efficiency, the price of a Model T just collapsed. It went from a luxury at $850 to something affordable at just $360. All of a sudden, Ford's vision wasn't a dream anymore. It was really happening. But here's the twist. You know how it goes. Solving one massive problem often creates a brand new one you never saw coming. A serious human crisis was starting to brew inside his amazing factory. It turns out the very thing that made the assembly line so brilliant, the simple, repetitive work, was also absolutely soul-crushing for the people doing it. The monotony, the sheer mind-numbing boredom of doing the exact same tiny motion hundreds and hundreds of times a day, it was brutal. And that led to this. This number is just staggering. By the end of 1913, Ford had a worker turnover rate of 370%. Think about what that means. To keep a workforce of 14,000, he had to hire over 50,000 people in a single year. The constant churn and training costs were threatening to wipe out every single gain he'd made. So his incredible invention was a huge success, but it was on the verge of eating itself from the inside out. Ford was staring down another crisis, and this one was going to need an even crazier, bolder solution. So on January 5th, 1914, Ford placed his second massive bet. And this move was so radical, so completely unheard of, that Wall Street and all his competitors were convinced he'd finally lost his mind and was about to go bankrupt. He more than doubled the daily wage. Just overnight. The industry standard was about $2.34. Ford announced he'd be paying a flat $5 a day. People thought it was corporate suicide. But look what happened. The impact was just instant. That chaotic 370% turnover rate, it plummeted to 54% in the first year, and then down to just 16%. Suddenly, the best mechanics in the country were flocking to Detroit. Productivity shot through the roof, and get this, Ford's profits actually doubled in 2 years. Now, this is the really important part. This wasn't just about keeping workers on the line. The $5 day created a whole new kind of social contract, what we call the Fordist bargain. And it would send ripples out that created a whole new kind of America. The absolute genius of the idea is right there in his own words. Ford had this incredible insight. Wait a minute, if I pay my workers enough money, they can be the ones to buy the cars they're building. He wasn't just solving a labor problem, he was creating his own customers, a totally revolutionary idea. But, there was a catch, and it was a big one. You didn't just automatically get the $5 a day. No, Ford created something called a sociological department, and these guys would literally visit your home to make sure you were living a proper life, a clean house, no heavy drinking, saving your money. It was a deeply strange and controversial bargain, a life-changing wage in exchange for letting your boss police your private life. Still, the ripple effects were just enormous. This policy is really what kickstarted the creation of a stable American middle class with money to spend. It's what led Ford to establish the 40-hour, 5-day work week, a standard we all just take for granted now. And of course, it turned Detroit into the industrial powerhouse of America. And this newfound mobility didn't just change the economy, it totally rewired the culture. I mean, think about it. For the first time, a private space on wheels was available to almost everyone. Young couples could finally escape the watchful eyes of their parents on the front porch. The car completely changed something as fundamental as American dating. You know, Ford's story is the perfect proof that innovation is always a gamble. A brilliant solution for efficiency can create a crisis of the human spirit, and a radical solution for wages can end up changing society in ways nobody could have ever predicted. It leaves us with a pretty big question for our own time, doesn't it? As things like AI and automation become our new assembly lines, what are the unseen human costs we're creating right now, and what kind of crazy $5 day gamble are we going to need to solve them?